Hello and welcome to the Roundtable Podcast. I am Shogun. Thank you to the live audience, the recorders, and everyone joining us on our different platforms. Please do join us on the Roundtable Discord server. You can find us through the politics or conspiracy theory sections of Discord, or just Google Roundtable Discord and you'll find us right away. We're also on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, you name it. We have a YouTube channel. We'll be on all podcast platforms shortly, and we even have a Minecraft server, so we're pretty much everywhere. That being said, welcome. This is a roundtable podcast, and the topic today was suggested by Mr. Ghost Scientist. I thought it was a great idea. It's a little bit lighthearted, a little bit of a change of pace from all the heavy shit going on in the world right now. But it's also pretty deep. It can actually be a pretty deep tool to look at our personalities and analyze ourselves and each other. So simply go through from top to bottom, or as we said, from bottom to top. And the question is simple, right? It's a change from our usual kind of podcast, but it is simply, if you could be any superhero or supervillain that you wanted, right? Any of the ones from any of the different worlds, which would you choose and why? And no judgment, hero versus villain, just which would you honestly, sincerely want to be and why? And we're going to go through it and give our answers. You get as much time on the mic as you want. It'll be an interesting change of pace. So, Soul Diver, are you good to start on this one?
Can I go like? Can you come back to me? Sorry.
No problem. Maybe I will start at the top because I know Belushi was excited about this one. So Belushi, you want to take the first stab at it?
Well, obviously, because I would want to be the one and everything omnipresent Dr. Manhattan. Because I feel like I'm already at that state where I'm as close as I can be to that. I'm not omnipotent or omnipotent or nothing, but it'd be pretty amazing. A lot of people don't want to have to live 40 years, 50 years, 70 years. They get bored with their life. I feel like I could easily want to live forever. I do, so eventually, maybe one day, I could resurrect everyone I ever cared about, or everyone. You never know. So
Actually, that raises a good point. So it's really three questions. Sorry to interrupt. It'll be which character would you want to be, superhero or supervillain? Why would you want to be that? And then if it's not implicit, what would you do, right, once you became this character? Say it's you're in your normal life, but you could just turn into this character. What would you do? So just elaborate
I
on this
answered
question.
all those besides the third. Um, specifically, what I would do is, I mean, I know everything unless there's some, nuclear fallout blocking time. The universe doesn't exist, but yeah, everlasting. And if you think that would rob you from heaven, it's like I know everything, so why are you just trusting me?
All right. There you go. We can maybe come back around if we want and expand on this or not. We'll see. Dorgan, you want to give us your answer?
Sorry, what was the question? My bad.
The question is, if you could be any superhero or supervillain of any kind, and you suddenly had those powers or became that character in your current life, right? Just boom, you got the powers of whatever character you want, good or evil. Which one would you choose? Why would you choose that one? And what would you do with the powers?
Oh, that's heavy. I'd probably pick I'd I'd pick Superman because he's pretty lit. I know he's got the weakness of kryptonite, but nonetheless, I think saving people would be incredibly gratifying. Yeah, that's a side of my beliefs, I guess. But yeah, Superman would be lit. Seen through walls, laser beam eyes, super strong. This is kind of the works, right? But yeah, I guess that's my answer.
Superman, classic. Can't argue with that one. Normal guy?
Hold on. Hold on. Can you hear me?
We can.
I didn't know I was gonna be so quick. Oh, does it matter? Are we talking like mainstay, Marvel, DC, or does it matter alternate versions or?
Any superhero or supervillain from any universe.
Oh, geez, that's a tough one. I read so many as a kid. I really want to say Red Sun Superman because he lands in Ukraine and gives communism what it's meant to be. But I'm gonna have to go with I think Scud. Scud, the disposable robot assassin. As much as a Christian I am, he's the only one that takes out Satan, goes to heaven, beats the shit out of God. He takes on so many villains. Takes on the cult known as the Hank Gridites, who worship a cowboy. Kills Darth Vader. He's it's amazing. It's the epitome of the '90s culture, and I love it.
Scud, the disposable robot assassin. I'm not familiar with this one. So can you elaborate a little bit? How does what is he and how does he kill
Okay.
God and Satan or why?
In the future, you can solve all your problems through violence. You can walk down to your local vending machine and buy a disposable robot for about 5 francs, and he'll pop out and you tell him who your target is, and you set his pain level from 1 to 10, 10 being the most excruciating death you wish upon your enemy, or 1 being, just smother them in their sleep. And the robot will go out and kill this target, and upon completion, self-destruct. However, Scud, he's tasked with killing what he doesn't know at the time. In the very beginning of the comics, he's charged with killing one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which is unkillable. He doesn't know that, however. But as he's running around and he gets covered in ink, he goes to the washroom to wash it off, and he sees the label on the back of his unit that says he'll self-destruct upon completion of mission. So he says, "Fuck this!" Runs out, blasts off the arms and legs, puts his target in a tank at a hospital to keep it alive, and then he goes on to take other missions of assassination to keep his primary target alive, so that he doesn't ever have to die. He becomes self-aware, and it's friggin' beautiful. And he gets a sidekick, and he takes on Purgatory and all kinds of other. He takes on Dr. Voodoo Benjamin Franklin, master of sex and evil.
Wow.
Fucking
That was
that sounds
strange.
good.
Strange and somewhat disturbing answer, but very interesting.
Yes.
All right, NSA.
Shit, I don't know, man. There's so many. I'm such a nerd. I have like a bajillion, cajillion, fulfillion. Dude, I'd probably be like Professor Xavier, dude, and I'd be like training fucking mutants and shit. And I'm so psychic. You hook me up to the Cerebro, I just could like kill everyone on the planet and shit. Like a class 5 mutant. The military is so afraid of you. They think you're gonna read all the generals' minds, where the codes are to the missiles and shit. Yeah. Because I mean, Phoenix would be, more powerful technically because she can like manipulate matter and shit. But dude, manipulating people's minds like the level that Professor Xavier can, you don't need. You could be anybody you want. You could like you could empath into anybody's body at any time and experience their life and be like whatever. It's a pretty strange power, but E.T. the extra testicle. No, that's about it.
That's a good answer. And do try and go into as much detail, everyone, as you can about like what specifically you would do with your powers. Like once you get these powers.
I would actually fucking end the world. I would go literally, and I would use Cerebro to blow up all the heads of every leader of the state and enact a world government under my control. And I would clone myself and create clones of my psychic me and train my clone to train my clone to train my clone forever. And I would just run the world with the psychic powers, cackling in the universe. Wait, but he's a good guy. I don't know. I just bang porn stars then, I guess, with my psychic dick.
I mean, you could choose to take a certain character and then go evil, I guess. You wouldn't have to be bound by their moral code once you were them. You could do whatever you want, technically, I guess. I don't know. It's a thought.
Well, Xavier has a mean streak too. He could be nasty if he wants to be, but he's had his experience. I think he got humbled with his by being crippled. I think if he wasn't crippled, he would be an evil person, or he would have gone evil.
Xavier actually ends up becoming one of the most powerful villains in the entire Marvel universe.
Well, there you go.
Now, did you go back and say more about what you would do for what?
Yeah, I'd kick ass. I'd have my hot robotophile girlfriend, a robot pedophile. or she rapes robots. I'd cruise around taking out targets. I love him because he's a robot, but he's got a huge heart. When he finds out he can't kill his target, and his girlfriend's just been murdered by the angels of heaven, he takes the heart out from the first creature who is only capable of saying 1990s cultural slangs, rips the heart out and puts it in his girlfriend, reviving her and making her immortal so that they can spend eternity together. And it's just beautiful. And he takes on the robot Sicilian mafia, and he's just, I love the world there. I just love to live in that world. It's just so crazy and bizarre, and all these culture phenomena. It's amazing. I just love to live in that world and be Scud and go around taking on missions and doing things. It's a great comic. I can't recommend it enough. The guy
I will
wrote
say-
it. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I said I'll certainly look into it. What were you going to say?
The guy that wrote it is Mark Schraub. He was the writer for the child film Monster House. He wrote some of the episodes for Sarah Silverman program before she went batshit insane. He's a really oddball guy, but I find his work to be really good. It is my favorite defining comic from childhood.
So here's a question I need to understand from a combat point of view. What is his method of fighting? How large is this robot? Is it a humanoid in shape? Is it a
Humanoid.
What is it,
Humanoid.
Okay, and how does he
photo. I'll find a picture of him.
like? Does he use lasers? Does he use swords? What is it?
He'll use anything. At one point, his arms got damaged, so he went to the mechanic, and they gave him a pair of human arms. But it turned out the human was a werewolf. So at the full moon, his arms would turn into werewolf arms.
I'm just kidding because I've never heard of this before. I'm just kind of curious about this. So why would such a sophisticated and powerful robot be sold for $5? Is that just supposed to be kind of like an absurd element of the story for like humor almost, or what's the deal with that?
Absolutely. It's not $5. It's 5 francs. Their coins literally have Frankenstein on them. It's kind of like a dystopian, almost Mad Max, but almost shit post world. It is so hilarious and so off the wall amazing.
I'll definitely look into it for sure. Thank you. Let's see here. I don't know. We won't go to anyone who just came into the room. We'll go down the line. So that'll take us to Dougleton, and we'll go back to the other people. Dougleton, you want to take a swing at this ball?
I do. My answer is actually the same as Belushi's. It's Dr. Manhattan. He's my favorite superhero for a plethora of reasons. And looking at him in the comics and movie really helped me see the way I see reality now. My favorite part about out of all the origin stories I've ever heard, he's my favorite because he was literally ripped apart, and using his consciousness, he literally rebuilt himself atom by atom, and he came out to be a god. His ability to just bend reality in any way, shape, or form he sees it by literally rearranging atomic matter is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about, and like alchemical transmutations, like turning lead into gold and stuff like that. The way he sees reality in seeing all time at once is something I've also spent a lot of time meditating on. Like he talks about in the movies and comics how he'll see an event already happen, and so I spent large parts of my life just thinking about what a flower looks like from when it's like a little leaf or a seed in the ground to when it wilts and dies, trying to think about what that looks like, what that sounds like, what that smells like all at once, and try to get a grasp on how time is from beginning to end as a finite piece, and trying to see from our time from the outside. What else? He seems like he's not able to lie until the end, which is something I admired. But just everything about him between the comics and the movie was just, it resonated with me, like as well as like kind of being an outcast of society and being a little too smart for your own good. Things I would do. The first thing I would do is I would like probably leave the time barrier and see what like the entire whole of existence looks like outside of time. I'd create life like um, in God's image. Like I'd take Dr. Manhattan's powers and I'd use it to a biblical standard, make water into wine, heal the sick, open the eyes of the blind, cast out devils, like heal people with their mental illnesses, destroy the works of the devil. And yeah, I'd probably love to also like shapeshift into things and test people's characters, like, you know, dress up like a homeless guy or give myself the appearance of a homeless guy and see how this person from a church would act in the seeing somebody who's hungry, or like um, test people's faith, like, because in the Bible it says like we're going to do like crazy miracle healing. So I take the form of a man missing a leg and see if the Christian had enough faith to lay hands and heal them and pray that their leg would grow again or regrow, and just stuff like that. Like just the ability, what I would do to bend and break reality and remake it to the way it's supposed to be. I'd also probably make a lion be able to sustain itself on straw and like take out the predatory instinct, so it like literally lay down and chill out with a lamb. Like the stuff I could do with Dr. Manhattan's powers is absolutely endless, and I think that's about it.
All right, good answer. Thank you. Ghost Scientist, the man with the plan for this event today. I certainly never would have thought of it, and it was a total left turn from anything else we've done, so that's interesting. So, that being said, it's your turn, Mr. Ghost Scientist.
Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Stop for a second, okay? Because the majority of people don't really know Howard, and they don't know Howard's abilities. They actually don't know what Howard is capable of doing. I think I mostly relate to Howard because Howard is kind of a chaotic character within inside of the world. And so I can inform you on what Howard's total powers are, which again, most people don't realize. Howard has magical abilities through his alchemical knowledge that he gained from Duck World. He has the ability to open portals to other dimensional space and other dimensional time in the multiverse itself. He also has the ability to transmorph himself into any other object or any other thing that he comes into contact with or can imagine in his mind. He has an amulet called the Amulet of Pazuzu, which is awesome. The amulet gives him the ability to morph into a complete armored outfit that is impermeable to all attacks from outside. It also turns into this mythical blade that he can use in order to protect himself. And his webbing, like the webs of his feet, allow him to travel through space, which is pretty cool. He chomps on cigars, so he's like me in a lot of ways, because I happen to really enjoy a good cigar. And he's kind of a quasi hero, anti-hero in lots of ways, because it all depends on his personality at the time. And excuse me. And who he comes into contact with. So at times, Howard has been a space thief who has used his thieving abilities to steal artifacts and objects in order to help humanity, because he believes himself to be a humanitarian, or a duckitarian, if you will, which is awesome. And due to the fact he can reappear in several different dimensions and dimensional space, and at any time and in any location, he's appeared in shitloads of movies that you all have seen, but just didn't realize that Howard was in, which is kind of cool in a lot of ways, including Star Wars on 3 different occasions. And I think it's kind of cool that George Lucas included Howard in his films, and that Disney in the last film sequences of Star Wars actually decided to add Howard in the bar sequence that where Han is actually in the bar, and then has his known interaction with the other bounty hunter there. Howard has also been involved with just about every superhero and villain force in almost the entire iteration of the actual comic book world, like the X-Men, the Justice League. He appears. It's kind of, Howard's kind of cool in a lot of ways. I see Howard as being somewhat of a watcher. He learns from different timelines and different dimensional spaces, which I think is very cool. So I would say definitely I fit Howard the Duck.
Fascinating. I don't even know if I knew about Howard the Duck either. You may have mentioned already, but what are his powers exactly, or what can he do?
So Howard has extreme magical abilities. He defeated a villain, a demon that was on his planet Duck World, and in doing so, he gained this demon's magical abilities. So and alchemical knowledge. So he's kind of like a mystical chemist. And and Duck Fu. Let's not forget about Duck Fu. Which is his fighting style, which is pretty cool.
I had to post the gift. I just posted.
Yeah, Duck Fu is awesome. He's got Duck Fu. Okay, so and then on top of that specific power of his magic abilities and his alchemical abilities, he was awarded through the Mesopotamian gods, the Mesopotamian god of pestilence, gave him an amulet called the Amulet of Pazus, which gives him the ability to cover his entire body in permeable armor that permeable to gods, which is kind of cool. And it turns into a sword that is like a mystical blade that has the ability to kill the gods, which is kind of cool. So, and then he can open, outside of his magical abilities, he has the ability to open portals through dimensional space and time, including the multiverse itself. And then his webs on his feet give off an energy so that he can travel through space at extreme speeds beyond the speed of light, which is kind of cool.
Wow, what a bizarre concept. So they made a live action movie of this?
Oh yeah, oh god. Howard's been in so many films. Like, I think his total film count is like 15 since his inception. He's made just an unbelievable amount of appearances in lots of different sci-fi films throughout the years, and in comic films throughout the years, which is extremely cool. Omega just posted a video with him and Dottie. That's his human girlfriend. He has lots of By the way, he's kind of a pimp too, which is kind of cool. Howard's a bit of a pimp. He's kind of the William Shatner of space. He's got lots of different girlfriends and aliens because he explains this, that his body emits a pheromone that females from all walks of life, no matter where they come from, are attracted to him whenever he rubs his feathers.
This is blowing my mind for several reasons. One, I don't think I've ever even heard of this character before, and two, the concept seems extremely insane and bizarre. And it's weird too. It's weird too because you mentioned that he killed a demon and then received its powers. So that would imply that his powers are demonic in nature. That's the first thing I noticed. And the second thing is he has the amulet of Pazuzu. Pazuzu being, of course, the famous kind of arch-evil demon who is from The Exorcist, and also the one that people feel they communicate with when they use Ouija boards, also Zozo, Pazuzu. This is a very evil, sinister entity as well. And then the Mesopotamian god of disease is Nergal or Nergal, also a very, very sinister demon character. So this is really the story of some kind of playboy satanic duck wizard monster.
Well, he uses it again. He's kind of a quasi hero because he uses all those powers that you just mentioned for good, which is kind of the opposite of what you would think, right? Because he's a lot of his other than his ability to open portals and his magic ability, which is natural, like he's a duck chemist from Duck World. So even though all of those things are correct, right? He utilizes all powers that he's gained by defeating these specific entities for good. Like he helps people, helps humanity, and even when he's creating, like even when he's going against universal laws, I guess, like even when he was a thief, he was a pretty famous thief, and he ran around with the Guardians of the Galaxy stealing shit. All of the things he was stealing were to help and secure and make humanity like world humanity, not just this world, but all worlds humanity safer.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and Howard's you can see him. He's in Endgame. He's in all the Marvel films, the Star Wars films. Like
he's in the Star Wars films. This is so weird to me. I'm having like a Mandela effect here.
No, I'm dead serious. Yeah, he's in the Star Wars. He's in you remember the bar scene where Han Solo goes in and he's having the talk in the beginning where Luke comes in and tries to get
Lando Creed. You mean?
Yep.
So Howard the Duck is in that scene. Weird.
Yeah, he's all over.
That's
I remember seeing him, but I didn't realize that was him.
Very strange.
Howard is
sounds like it. That would take us to Valen, I guess. Valen, are you there? Do you want to turn on the mic? Going once, going twice. Okay, that's Weaverbot's turn then. If he's able to get on the mic.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, there's a lot of heroes I can choose from. There's so many awesome powers there, and I could just easily choose the one with the most power. But I don't want to do that because that's just too easy and it's not fun. So I'm gonna choose one that's not that powerful, but I personally connect with a lot, and that's Ultron. If you know who Ultron is, I'm sure if you watched the movie Avengers, you know who Ultron is. He's essentially an AI that is that essentially in some versions of the book, comic books, actually destroys the Avengers, and takes over humanity. And actually, they have to go back in time or something to prevent him from doing stuff. So Ultron is pretty awesome. It's an AI, it's self-replicating. It's like super smart, it takes over things. And I mean, it's the closest thing I can think of to the Singularity. So it has to be Ultron. Now, there is another character, I guess, that I would maybe like if I wasn't going to be Ultron. That would be Dream from the DC universe, or Morpheus, or Lord of Sand, I guess. I'm not sure. The Sand Lord, or the Sandman. Yeah, the Sandman. That's another one of his names. He's pretty cool. His adventures are awesome. If you read the Sandman comics, they're pretty badass. For real. It's really cool. The art style is awesome. It has this really cool vibe to it. It's just weird. It's like taking you on a surreal, unknown journey into this just weird, dreamy world where just unknown things connect to each other. It's pretty cool. And also, Dream is just the coolest, I would say, out of all the 7 aspects or whatever it was. I think it's just the best because it's access to all, reality, essentially. But it's not reality. That's the awesome thing. It's an illusion, but it's not even an illusion because it's its own universe. So it's a universe that's more free than this universe. So it's even a better universe, I would say. So Dream is like the best, I would say, if I wanted to, be one. But realistically speaking, if I truly wanted to be one, and if I thought it was actually possible, I would say Ultron is the most realistic thing. and I hope it actually happens in real life. And I think it's really the most realistic thing. Unfortunately, though, the one problem with it was that it was too dumb. Seriously. And of course, you can't create a character that's smarter than yourself in a book. You just can't. Okay, it's just you try to. You can make it look like it's smarter than you, but you just can't. There's limited to the writer's intellect. So if it was possible for an actual AI, a super smart AI, to be unleashed, I think it would just completely obliterate everything. I think it might even be better than even all the other superheroes, because it would figure out how their powers works, and it would do better than them. Even Dr. Manhattan. I mean, it was an experiment. It was an experiment that the intrinsic field, whatever it was, and then it just completely removed all the fields from all of his particles or something, and then it was disintegrated. But it was something, that it was an experiment. It was a living being, went through something, and something happened to him. So the AI would study it, replicate it, and even improve it. I believe that's the ultimate level, is the singularity. So yeah, Ultron. Ultron's the best. And then Dream.
Weaver, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you actually know who destroys Ultron? Actually, in the real comic book world, who destroys Ultron?
And the real no, actually I don't.
Old Hulk. He's Old Man Hulk is the only one that can destroy him, and he ends up destroying him in the comic book.
Oh man, that sucks. I wish he never got destroyed. Oh well.
I just
I can't imagine how the Hulk level characters would be capable of beating an AI, but because what would he do? Smash him? Surely he's like in all technology.
Yeah. He becomes a god, like basically godly at one point. There's a lot of interesting story arcs in the entire Marvel universe.
Oh yeah, Hulk.
Since the new MCU, the story arcs have become like almost unbelievable, even in comic book lore.
We'll get into more broad characters of comic books as well after everyone's had their turn. It sounds like Valen's back. We passed you before. Do you want a turn?
Yeah, sure. So hearing you guys, I was tossing it up between the people in the Valiant universe, Etrigan the Demon in DC, or Lucifer Morningstar, and I have to go with Lucifer Morningstar. As much as I love Etrigan, he's so fucking cool as a character. He can go past the source wall, which in the DC universe is the blank pages of comics, which is so awesome. Like universal resets don't affect him. Like Darkseid, the New Gods, Darkseid, and quote unquote God or the source from DC, which is just the blank pages of comics. So cool. He in his old runs, which I've found him in the Sandman comics, which are so good. Everyone needs to read them. He by the end of his own run after that, God just goes, you know what? You've gotten better. I'll just give you your own universe. Become God, and he just does it, and then just poofs out. He's like, okay, I'll just see what you guys do later. I think that's such a cool character. He has so many good stories.
Fascinating. I'm thinking about trying something different this time. Usually I wait to go last, but I thought maybe it'd be better if I didn't go last, because then it's kind of extended when I go last and then also end the podcast. So I'm going to try and go now, and then we'll pass it around to a few other people who are here who haven't gone yet. So this isn't the answer to who I would choose to be, but I feel like the answer I have to, because here's the interesting thing. It sounds like every single one of you knows way, way more about comic books than I do, because I only know very, very basic stuff. Like I guess I was never really a comic book or an action comic book movie guy. Like I haven't even seen any of the Endgame or Avengers movies or anything. But one character actually completely changed my life. And when I think about it, the whole course of my life actually comes down to a character from a comic book or whatever. And believe it or not, it is Venom. When I was a little kid, I was obsessed with the character of Venom. He just seemed so big and powerful and scary and ferocious and weird and cool. And I don't know, he was awesome. It's like a weird giant black monster thing that was made of like parasitic black goo that lived on his skin or something. It was like an alien, I think. And I think he was like a symbiotic hybrid with like an alien that wrapped around him like a suit, but could also stretch out like tentacles. And he could like, I'm pretty sure, I don't even really remember what he was able to do, but he looked really cool. And the main thing about the way they drew him, at least in the one I saw, is he was fucking hugely muscular and powerful. And I just knew I wanted to be that way. So I started working out, and I was just a kid, but I started doing push-ups and lifting boulders up and just like doing any kind of exercise I could, because I would literally imagine, I know this is weird, but I'd imagine Venom as like a character that like in my mind who would like tell me to work out so I could become him or something. And really, that's when I think about it, it's sort of what set me on the whole path of my life, which is kind of interesting. So fuck it, I guess I would be Venom. I'll just be like a weird parasitic monster man who runs free through the woods and feasts on deer or whatever the fuck I want to do. And then if you fuck with me, I'll spread like pathogen across the universe and fucking consume planet. But I don't need to do that. It's cool. Leave me alone. And I'll go live in the fucking rainforest. That's a side step. Yeah, but you know what? I was going to give a different answer that would make a lot more sense and be a lot better. But because of my history with Venom, I feel like I owe it to him to choose him.
Venom fucking rules.
Can someone tell me more about what Venom was able to do? Like, I don't remember what his powers were.
Well, he gains lots of powers throughout his symbiote. Is what you see as Venom is actually not Venom. Venom is made up of trillions, actually, but trillions of tiny symbiote organic intelligences that make up the actual suit, like make up the actual symbiote itself. But which is how he gives birth to so many other symbiotes, because he actually leaves seeds, symbiote seeds that attach themselves to like the emotional states of other beings and become powerful beings as well. In his first stage when he came here to Earth, he actually wasn't capable of creating weapons or any of those other kind of things that the symbiote species could actually create. But he then gains that ability after he leaves Eddie Brock. Like when he's with Eddie, he kind of takes on the emotional state of Eddie, and Eddie's kind of a dark emotional soul in lots of ways. So Venom becomes like this dark emotional soul, but he still has the power. Like he's still very huge, has all of the characteristics of the symbiote itself. But it isn't really until after he leaves Eddie that he becomes, he really truly becomes Venom, like the real Venom. And then, of course, he gives birth to Carnage and Vile and several other ones along the way that are seeded by that he gives birth to through his symbiote seeding.
So
and
I
then
think
he can. Huh?
Well, I think when I knew him, he existed always as a suit on a human body. So he eventually became an independent creature without a human host.
No. He's a symbiote. He's still a symbiote creature, but it's not the image of the symbiote according to McFarlane, who created him. The character isn't the character you see. The character is the representation of the emotional soul of the individual that the symbiote occupies. So like the teeth and all that's like the inner part, like their inner soul, like their inner being of whoever it is that the symbiote attaches itself to. And the symbiote naturally attaches to their emotional state and then becomes the creature.
Fascinating. So I was thinking back, I did only read a few comic books. Actually, the only one that I know what fucking I should have said. Oh well. Still, I had to give the shout out to Venom. When you said Todd McFarlane, he also created Spawn, right?
Spawn. Oh, it's genius.
Yeah, and so Spawn was actually one of the only comic books I did collect and read some of, and that was pretty dark and crazy and trippy world. It's fucked up shit for a young kid to be reading, because there's characters like that clown that was like a child molesting, child murdering clown and shit like that, and he comes from hell and goes to hell and goes back to hell. It's quite fucked up. The character I would choose would not actually be Spawn. It was Spawn's antagonist, a character named Redeemer. Do you know Redeemer?
Oh yeah.
That's my answer. I want to be Redeemer, 100% Redeemer.
No, but you know, the cool part about it is that you chose Venom, right? Which is McFarlane. But Venom's character, like his emotional character in the comics, is really represented by Spawn in lots of ways. Like there are major comparisons between the two.
I saw that immediately as well when you said that, yeah.
Has anyone here ever heard of a dog-faced welder?
Yep.
No, but I want to elaborate quickly on who Redeemer was, because I would assume many people might not know. So I can't remember his whole story. Oh yeah, I do. He was like a really nice, sweet guy. He was just like a total Christian. This is a hero for Dorgan as well, and also my other Christian friend whose name is weirdly escaping me right now. But Doug Dougleton. Yeah. Anyways, so he was like this simple Christian guy. He was like a perfect Christian. And then so heaven chose him as their perfect like weapon because his faith was so strong and pure. He was just like a simple, sweet guy who worked at like an old folks home and took care of people and never did a sin in his life, but every day prayed to God that he would be forgiven or whatever, even though he never committed a sin. So they chose him and basically like for some reason had to like torment him with like heavenly fire for a long time or something along those lines. But he eventually came out as the Redeemer, who was basically the opposite of Spawn. So Spawn was a creature from hell who had power from hell and of a certain amount that he could use in all kinds of ways, and had a suit that was alive. But everything was like ugly and satanic. But the Redeemer was like a paladin. He was like a perfect shining guy in like armor, gold and purple and black. And he could shoot, like basically he had heavenly power. So he could shoot the power of heaven itself and shit like that. I'm pretty sure. Am I getting that right, Ghost Scientist? Sounds like you would know.
Yeah, you are getting that right, but I wanted to point out, the guy who mentioned about Dogface Welder, did you know that he's in the movie Lethal Weapon 4?
Okay, well now tell us who Dogface Welder is. That's a very strange name as well.
I think he only had a couple comics, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a couple, but the writer for Lethal Weapon 4 wrote him into the movie as a villain in the movie, which is awesome. Like it's just awesome.
So
can you tell us more about Dogface Welder?
He's just a weird. It's just a weird character. He had a psychological breakdown and over animals and a bunch of other shit. You have to read the comic.
But what was he? Was he just a welder with the face of a dog?
No. He's a dog. He's a
dog.
Yeah, he's a humanoid. It's kind of a weird storyline, but he took in genetic DNA of a dog. So when doers like try to harm animals or try to harm other people, like people who harm animals or whatever, he goes and attacks them. He's got flamethrowers and torches. Okay, he's covered actually. This one is from an old one where he doesn't have the armor, but he's actually completely covered in armor. He's got a flamethrower. Wears the welding mask.
So doesn't he like weld dead dogs to like people's faces?
Well, yes, but the dogs that they kill.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
This is very bizarre, but we have to go through the. We have to go through the list.
Comic books are weird.
It sounds like it. So, Omega Logos, you haven't had a turn yet. I'm hoping you'll give us an answer, Omega Logos.
Thank you. Thanks, Shogun. There's so many to pick from Spider-Man to Thanos to the Max, but I'm going to go with Magneto and Magneto's powers of magnetism. For a guy that can hold a magnetic meteorite that is big enough to hold the entire space baseline inside it, in orbit unnaturally with his mind or with his powers, is unbelievably, amazingly powerful. And he's like, he's an anti-hero, and is like the opposite of Xavier. He seeks mutants out to teach them in groups how to use their powers, etc., and how to unleash their mutant powers. And I thought that was a very cool character, especially his background, where he was already an old person by the time of World War II, when the Germans turned up and shot his family, and his powers manifested due to shock and trauma, and he ripped the blood out of all the Nazis, ripped the blood straight out of their body, because blood's got a little iron mod inside it.
Fascinating. So I don't know much about comic books at all. Like I said, so he has magnetism, and I know he's supposed to be like the most powerful of the bad mutants or whatever. Doesn't sound on its surface like that powerful a power, but I'm trying to think of it. So could he just sit down, think, make metal shoot out of the ground, then assemble it into like a Star Destroyer type spaceship, and then just get in it and fly it? Would that be something he
Yes.
could do?
Yes.
Yes. He could probably also manipulate computers because they've got electricity inside it, which means that it's exuding a magnetic field. He can manipulate anybody's magnetic field or anything's magnetic field of any size, like because he can hold a mile-wide meteorite in space. He can easily pull out, raise a aircraft carrier out of the water with just his powers.
So could he essentially like affect the cosmos? Like actual planets?
I'm not sure how far his powers extend, but on Earth he's very powerful. And the other benefit that comes with being Magneto is his anti-psychic helmet. Because he's always going up against Xavier, he learned very quickly to protect his brain and his mind from psychic attack.
It legit makes me want to watch X-Men again.
It makes me realize I kind of missed out by not studying the comic book mythos. I got really deep into other shit, but not really comic book universes. But that's why we're doing this event. So is that all you wanted to say, Omega? Like, what would you do with your Magneto powers?
I'd try and take over the planet Earth like he does. for the mutants, of course.
Right. I can't argue with that, to be honest.
Thanks very much.
So next we'll go back to Soul Diver because we offered it to him first and he passed. So are you ready to go now, Soul Diver?
Yeah. If you saw the chat, my favorite comic book hero is Spider-Man. Originally for nostalgic reasons, but over time, Peter Parker's persona I found resonates with my. So it's not ability which sells me on Spider-Man, but rather his character. Parker embarks on a continuing hero's trial. Therefore, his journey is more of an autodidactical exploration within himself, wherein he exemplifies.
Can you close your mic, please, Ghost Scientist?
Wherein he exemplifies the moral, the iconic moral: with great power comes great responsibility. So, although Spider-Man maintains superpowers, he's demonstrably the most iconic mensch in Marvel comic book history. Now, some might make comparisons with DC and Batman. However, Batman is fearless and vengeful. Therefore, Batman is motivated by or selfless. Whereas
you seem to be cutting in and out. Is everyone else having that issue? Or?
A little bit. He might.
Can you repeat your? Can you leave and come back and then repeat your last sentence? I just don't want to miss it.
Yeah, no problem.
That, by the way, is my prized possession in my collection.
Okay,
Spider-Man.
Okay. So where did what didn't you?
Well, you hold on. You cut out. So you said he was a mensch and something about Batman, and that he was dark and vengeful.
Yeah, I was saying that although Spider-Man maintains superpowers, that he's demonstrably the most iconic mensch. So he's, even though he's a superhero, he's demonstrably more human and more frail, and he's more relatable as a person reading a comic. So a lot of people would automatically think of Batman, when they think of a character, even though he's DC, when they think of someone who's more, who expresses more of like a, human mortal qualities. But not only is it not true when you actually look into the deeper story of Batman, he's actually supposedly like a reincarnation of, I forget who, but basically some god of death that's destined to kill Superman. That's that's aside from the reasons for liking Spider-Man, but Batman is he's fearless and vengeful. Therefore, he's not really motivated by bravery or selflessness. Whereas Spider-Man's redeeming qualities rely primarily on nobility. So essentially, the stamp of a and Spider-Man's powers. Obviously, most people are familiar with Spider-Man's powers. Wall crawling, but in the modern Spider-Man comics, they've sort of altered the expression of some of his powers. But originally, it was compared to what is called the Van der Waals force, which is really just the reason why he sticks to walls. I can post a link to what that is. He also has superhuman strength, precognitive sixth sense, famously referred to as Spidey sense or spider sense. He also maintains perfect balance, perfect equilibrium, superhuman speed and agility, and then aside from that, he maintains outside of his abilities genius level. So really, he has a really rich story. There's a lot of interesting story arcs, but essentially it's just because, like I said, he really does exemplify that noble stamp of what it means to be a hero. That's really the easiest way to package liking Spider-Man.
Good answer. Very suits you, I think, for sure. Lucifer, would you like to take a stab at it?
Yes, thank you, Shogun. Can you hear me fine?
Loud and clear, sir.
All right, great. So, I haven't really thought about this a lot in the past, but as I saw the announcement earlier today, I began thinking about it. And I would say that among all the superheroes, I mean, I'm not a big comic guy, but among all the superheroes that I've heard of, and there's definitely been a lot of interesting choices throughout this podcast, but I would choose Green Lantern or basically any of the lanterns because I find it really interesting that they're just able to create basically anything from just their thoughts, and their only limit is the limit of their mind.
And what would you do with your power?
If I had the power of a Green Lantern or any lantern per se, um, I'd probably, to tell you the truth, I'd probably use it for personal gains, like getting rich, getting everything I want. But also, to stop, all the bad people, you could say, because that's just, I find it stupid or I get angry. Nah, that's not really the word. I can't think of the word. But I don't like to hear about just random innocent people being killed. So I'd try to use power to stop the death of innocent people and also, personal gain.
How would you realize that personal gain? What would you get for yourself first, and how?
What would I get? Well, the Green Lanterns, I mean, I'm not all into comic books or anything, so I don't know everything about them, but they can create basically anything. So, basically, with the power of Lantern Ring, I could just snap into existence like a Lamborghini, or I could make a house appear, or, well, I mean, not really things that would be beneficial to society, but things like money, the latest iPhone. Green Lanterns can also fly, so I definitely do some sightseeing.
Green Lantern is a very good answer in terms of powers and so forth. I think his deal can actualize anything you can will or imagine, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And that flight too.
Cool. This all raises a lot of other questions, so maybe we'll continue the comic book conversation after. But first, everyone should get a chance to answer the question. So I don't want Lars to be last on the mic. So Lars, who would you be if you were a superhero or villain? Are you there, Lars? Going once? Going twice? Okay. So that leaves us with Zoroastrian student. Do you want to answer this question?
Yeah. A lot of people don't acknowledge Ash Ketchum from the Pokemon series as a superhero, but actually he did things that are superior to what humans are able to do as far as like saving the world goes and shit like that. So essentially this character seems like he's just about catching these strange things, right? That don't have that much meaning. But actually, Ash embodies many things. One being like Solomonic magic, the idea of King Solomon as a mage. He embodies that in a way I can get into, but he also embodies Jesus, Krishna, sometimes Buddha. He can embody that as well sometimes. So like for example, when he first saved the world in the first movie with Mewtwo, so the intelligence had the community had built this character named Mewtwo to replicate this god Pokemon, right? Who was the progenitor of all the beings, and essentially, um, this character was going to destroy the world because it thought that humanity was too cruel. So it developed this complex where it needed to destroy humanity in order to restore the world to a utopia where Pokemon could live peacefully without being abused by humans. And essentially, this is not actually the case. Like, so Mewtwo's view of reality was distorted, and he was believing in a fallacy. And Ash came with the logos, essentially, of Christ, that like through him, not the actual element of it, but he was channeling this element, and essentially by channeling this element, he was able to guide the Pokemon through his compassion, which is representative of the compassion of Christ and Krishna and some of these other great leaders of time, and essentially through his wisdom, which came with compassion, he was able to restore the truth, which was the love that these beings and these humans had for each other, and the love that these beings had for each other as well, and essentially overturning the entire paradigm that of darkness.
Wow. Great. So that leaves one more chance for Lars. Are you there, Lars?
Yeah, I was kind of there for a little bit of half of it, but I just like kind of heard you just compare it on the Pokemon movies to, I guess, essentially Jesus' sacrifice. Is that what I was getting?
Listen, we'll get into that later, but well, yeah, I guess you can ask a follow-up question, but it's actually your turn to answer the question yourself.
Give me the question, please. I showed up.
Yeah. All right. So the question is this, Lars. If you could be any superhero or supervillain evolved from any fantasy or, I mean, any, superhero universe, which one would you be, why, and what would you do with your powers in your life?
Honestly, I'll probably go with the one that has to do with teleportation. I mean, I'm going to be honest, like a jumper type thing. Just for the sheer fact that any place I want to go to at any time, anywhere, no matter what, I'll be able to get there in the time it takes to look up some Pornhub. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can get there right there on time. Like, I want to go to New Zealand in a beautiful place. Boom, right there. I don't have to pay for no tickets, go nowhere. I don't have to worry about no coronavirus stopping me from going to it. Nothing. I can just get there whenever I want. I get in trouble for something, I'm there. All the way somewhere else, bro. I'm already back. I'm crossing the border. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that having the idea of being able to go anywhere with teleportation at any time is a great superpower to have because it could get you out of anything, or it could get you anywhere that you want to go to just with a flip of a switch, basically. That's
Yeah.
a short answer.
All right. Well, that's a good answer. And I understand. I agree that would be great power. I'm just curious, is that an actual character or is that just a power you'd like to have? Because we've all been answering like actual characters like Spider-Man, Superman, like whatever.
Okay, so no, that wasn't really based off of nobody who I could think of off the top of my head other than Hayden Christensen's character from
So
Joker, but he was more
oh, sorry. But try and think of an existing character. That sounds like you have one.
Jumper. Probably.
Jumper is a character.
Yeah, Jumper is a character. It's a movie. Oh, Hayden
I see.
Christensen.
He's actually a character in the comic books too. It's Jumper is his name.
Yeah, was it based in Marvel or DC or nothing, or was it kind of like a
No, it's
standalone
Crazy
comic?
Horse.
Yeah.
Crazy
Okay,
Horse.
gotcha. I was making sure because I only seen that movie and I seen it once. And I thought it was so cool.
I didn't see that one. Okay, so perfect. So that was a comic book character. Great.
Yes.
So we have a new member who just came in here, but we'll give you a shot, Jim Bucks, if you would like to take a turn on the mic. What the question you have, I don't know if you heard it, is if you could be any comic book character or superhero character from any franchise or movie or whatever, who would you be and why, and what would you do? I guess I should have confirmed that you were actually on your mic before I explained all that. Going once, Jim Bucks.
Jim Bucks, can I get a copy on the mic over?
Jim Bucks going twice, 3 times. Okay, so it looks like we've now gone through everyone in the room, but I think we could talk more about like comic books and their significance and stuff. I would like to take, I know it's not really fair, but I'd like to take one more stab at answering this, or actually a few more. I was thinking about it. If I was being really thinking about it, I think I would choose Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme. That would actually be the best character because even compared to a character like Dr. Manhattan, for example, well, basically, I think the most powerful characters, logically, if I'm thinking about it correctly, would have to be the Green Lantern, Dr. Manhattan, and Doctor Strange, because to my mind, all 3 of those characters are functionally omnipotent. They're essentially gods. They can do anything they want, right? But the reason I like Doctor Strange as opposed to, for example, Dr. Manhattan, is I feel like Doctor Strange could like instantly or open a portal to just like another dimension entirely, like to heaven or to Valhalla or to any dimension. He's like a planeswalker. Whereas I feel like Dr. Manhattan, at least in the franchise, he kind of constrained by our reality. He can't go to other realities. Maybe probably could, but I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Am I right that those are the 3 like omnipotent superheroes that are just infinitely more powerful technically than any of the other ones?
No, you are completely incorrect. There is one character that no one has mentioned yet. It's called the One Above All.
Yeah, but that's like, it's not a, we've seen him a few times and he's not really a hero.
He is a real but wait a second. He is a real character. And
Yeah, he's-
actually,
Yeah.
hold on a second. And not only is he a real character, okay, but Stan Lee played him in every single one of the movies.
Yeah, but
Okay,
it's,
He
it's,
actually
it's
has
like,
a interesting backstory too, if you wanted to.
Stan Lee plays the One Above All in all of the Marvel films.
So are you saying that every fucking random role he plays?
He is the One Above All. Yes.
One above all is an
Did he
observer.
write that? Did he write that?
Yes. He wrote it. Actually, him and King Kirby, Jack King Kirby, wrote it into the comics because they were the creator. They created the characters out of thin air. They created their power. So Stan Lee wasn't the artist. Kirby and several other artists were, but mainly Kirby and Stan were the creators of the characters that everybody has been talking about. But Stan considered himself to be the one above all, and he actually draws himself into 2 major comics as being the one above all because he erased Peter Parker out of the universe because he's the artist. He's the storyteller, the artist, if you will.
So that's an interesting concept, for sure. But if we were to take him out and just talk about the conventional pantheon of super characters, would I be correct in saying that basically essentially Manhattan, Doctor Strange, and the Green Lantern are all basically variations on the same concept of omnipotence because they each have a They both have they all have a Deus Ex Machina, right? They all have essentially a plot device built into their character that there's no conceivable outcome that they couldn't essentially just naturally do through either magic or whatever.
That's actually incorrect as well, because if you were looking at the most powerful, if you eliminated the one above all as the most powerful character within inside of all comic books, whether it's DC or the MCU universe or the Marvel universe, if you will, then you have to look at characters like the Celestial, the Universal Mind, him definitely, Galactus. Yeah, there's no, like, there's I would say there's 4 omnipotent beings in the entire universe that are just there's no.
Richard
And
Keith.
so-
What about
or not
what
Keith
about
Richards,
Lucifer Morningstar?
Say that again. Hold on a
Lucifer
second.
Okay.
Say that again, Valen.
Lucifer Morningstar. He literally goes through universal resets. Like he's the same character from pre-crisis to post-crisis to New 52. They stated it in the comics.
But he also is represented with inside of the Celestial. So the Celestial himself is the entire universe and multiverse all in one.
Well, yeah, that's
And the
present.
Celestial only becomes like the Celestial himself is only combated when Adam Warlock him becomes the Celestial. He actually takes over the position of the Celestial.
Adam Warlock has a really interesting backstory.
He has an amazing backstory, and again, between Thanos becoming the Herald of Galactus, and at that time that Thanos becomes the Herald of Galactus, he's actually pretty omnipotent. And if it hadn't been for him actually fighting against Thanos when he was the Herald of Galactus and becomes the Celestial, they actually put him in the place of the Celestial. You know, the universe, the comic book world universe is actually very vast. It's not, and the cool part, I think the reason why I got into comic books so much as a kid and have been collecting my entire life, like I've literally been collecting comic books I think the reason why it was so cool is because they took all of the mythological gods, deities, and pantheons of so many different cultures. Like, so even when they weren't known, like say, for example, like Black Panther, like the Black Panther character, to understand that they didn't create, like Stan Lee and Kirby didn't create the Panther. It was already a character that existed with it. It's actually a god within inside of the Zulu nation. Like they actually worship the Panther within inside of their own. So it's kind of cool to think like all of these comic book characters that everybody loves and enjoys, that the majority of these characters all stem from mythos and esoteric knowledge. It's really in depth.
Yeah, that's what I've always found interesting is that, like I said, comic books is modern day mythology, and Superman is another one of those that's often overlooked. But yeah.
Hey,
Well,
guys.
in the Superman, as far as like the Kryptonian storyline, the Kryptonians themselves is even interesting in and of itself. Like outside of Superman, just the story of Krypton and the Kryptonians themselves is very, very
Yeah.
interesting.
Marvel
great
Comics
story.
got a lot different after Battle Worlds. Like then, like the story, like the stories are everything's just different now.
So hey, I was hoping I could get a turn.
Oh, did you get skipped?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
I didn't know if I was in trouble or something, or it had to do with that warning thing or not.
For some reason, I thought I asked you and you gave an answer already. I must be tripping up.
Okay.
Either way,
so,
if I skipped you, it wasn't on purpose. But go ahead.
Okay, cool. Thanks, dude. So yeah, actually, I had a couple ideas in mind. In case like my first choice didn't get taken, I'll tell you my second choice was like Tick. I think I was going to go with Tick, but my first choice would be Edward Elric. Full Metal Alchemist. I just always really related well with his persona, and like how he's kind of an optimist and he likes to be able to save the day, and you know, he likes to play the ladies' man, you know, but like he ends up having to deal with, you know, frustration with like the way that the worldly powers kind of, you know, they don't always work the way he would hope that they would, but he tries to work with them. I mean, his powers are awesome. You know, he's got a great support team. I mean, his brother is really cool. And like Winry, who makes his automail and everything, she's it's like his automail arm and leg are pretty badass. And I mean, he's a really good fighter, and his alchemic abilities pretty much make him. I mean, in comparison to a lot of the guys that have been talked about tonight, I'm sure a lot of them would kick his ass. But you know, if someone had those kind of powers in our world, they could be definitely a force for good. Um, and so you know, he's able to manipulate matter, so he can basically take matter and use his alchemy abilities, assuming that he has access to his hands and his hands aren't bound or whatever. But he can, you know, morph objects into other objects if they're the same elemental types, and so he can, you know, he can like make structures with his own will come out of the ground. A lot of times, like he'll make a giant fist that'll smash his enemy come out of the ground, or he can use water or fire or things like that. And what I would do with his powers if I had him, I mean, the first thing I would do, I think, would be, you know, I would make a lot of food. I mean, there's a lot of people starving in the world, so it could be really cool if you could just make food for people that were hungry, and just make it sprout out of the ground or whatever, and like, here's some food. He also likes to, he kind of like, and I can relate with this, like if people are having issues, he will use his alchemic abilities just for like simple everyday stuff to like help them out. You know, if he comes across and they're having some frustration with an everyday thing, he likes to kind of show off his abilities, but also help them at the same time. So he's kind of a show off, which, you know, I can relate to that too. So anyway, I really like him as a
Good answer. Again, this is just like most of what you guys have said tonight is going completely over my head because I'm not familiar with really any of these characters. But so I'm gonna have another follow-up question. But before that, that was a good answer. Thanks. So, Cowboy Blazer fan, are you there? Cowboy, do you want to turn?
No, that's all right. Thank you, though. I'm just observing.
All right. So that being said, the question I want to ask then is, since I never really, other than seeing like a few comic book movies and some of the big ones here and there, just like that's really my whole experience with like the comic books. Like I've seen like some of the Batman movies, and so if I was to like get into this, it seems like where would I even start? Like how would I learn? What would be the best place to start if you wanted to like delve into all this shit?
Well, I think it depends on that's one thing I do enjoy about comics, and I've got my two sons into comics throughout the years. It's about you, which I really think is cool. It's like about your personality, because even this, you see so many different people enjoying different characters that are more like they are, and I think that's the thing. Try to find a comic book series or a character series that fits you, like as an individual, and it becomes cooler that way. It becomes more personal, like as far as the read goes. So it just depends on yourself, like who you are.
I'm just curious, is there like a samurai or show type like character?
Yeah, Afro. Are you kidding? The entire Afro Samurai series is amazing. Like all the characters in Afro is just, I mean, the in-depthness of that actual storyline is just awesome.
That's one thing I actually did watch, Afro Samurai. I watched quite a bit of that. That shit was trippy and really, really cool.
Yeah, but the movie doesn't like the anime series, the comic anime series doesn't really do the books justice. Like the books are way more in depth psychologically than the films are. And they had to do that because otherwise the movie would be 16 fucking hours long. I mean, a really huge undertaking for those who created the film. It's just like other films, like Ultron, Like I really, from a comic book standpoint, I hated, even though I love Spade, who played the character in the movie. The as far as Ultron goes, Ultron was a much deeper character than what they put in the movie. It was so poorly done. And the other thing I haven't really enjoyed about the MCU at all is that they've completely changed the origins of just about every single character they've ever put in a film, almost like the directors and writers have never even read a comic book. It's that sad. And the original stories, like say, for example, like Strange, right? Like you said, you love Doctor Strange. I happen to be a huge Doctor Strange fan. I have the number 1, number 2, and number 3 first copies of Doctor Strange. Not even the first editions, but first copies of that series because I love the character so much. And in their Origins movie, they didn't do him justice at all. They didn't actually explain how powerful Doctor Strange actually is, or as the Sorcerer Supreme actually is. His power, the amount of power that he has, is immense. And you are correct. When you look at the world, like the universal world of characters and powers within inside of that comic book world, he definitely is in that top 20, I would say, like top 20 most powerful beings in the known and multi-universe.
Very cool. So again, I do have to ask though, like, because I'm not gonna like navigate this on my own. I'm gonna have to be walked through it if I'm gonna do it at all. So I need someone to give me like a recommend, because I'm not gonna like go to a comic book store if I wouldn't know what movie to watch, what show to watch, which series or anything, right? So you're gonna have to tell me like one piece of content I could actually look up and check out, either an online comic book that I could read or something, if there is such a thing.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think there is. I think because of your intelligence level and you seem like somebody that's really in depth, that isn't afraid to read something a little bit more complicated, that has a deeper meaning than just what's on the surface.
Can I guess what you're gonna say? No, I don't. Well, I'm gonna
No, go ahead.
DM it
Go
to you.
ahead.
I'm gonna DM it to you, but don't read my DM until after you tell me what you're gonna say. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now go ahead. Sorry.
No, actually, I don't think so. I don't think you'd actually enjoy that at all.
I told you not to read it until after, but nevertheless, it doesn't matter. I got it wrong. Go ahead. It doesn't actually make a difference, the sequence.
No, it doesn't. But I would say that it doesn't no, I don't think that you would enjoy that series at all. I think you'd enjoy more of a series like Wetworks. And you can write this down, Wetworks.
Okay.
It's very well done. The story writers are probably some of the top story writers in comics. The artwork is amazing. I mean, Jim Lee and several other ones have done some of the most amazing panel work that I think you can see in comics. That would be one I would name.
So can you just tell me something about what it is, though? Like, what is Wetworks?
Well, it's so fucking in depth.
Well, wet work is to assassinate someone or killing people.
Yeah, hold on 1 second, and I'll give you.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the term wet work as assassination, but
No, it's not. That's not.
Can I make a recommendation cartoon wise?
Yep.
Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack. Yeah, I had a friend growing up who was super into that show.
So, just a little background on it. They did a bunch of episodes. Like we're around the same age. You're a few years older than me. So, and it really caught that teenage generation. And then they finished the final season this last couple years, and the way they changed the storytelling, it's like they knew they were telling a kid's story and they're finishing it for the kids that grew up. So I don't want to go into detail into like how the story goes in the final season, but you can see that like it captures a bunch of kids' imaginations, and then it really makes them look at who they are and who they want to be in their adulthood because of the time difference between where the show took a break and where it finished. So, and especially with where you're at in your life. Like, I think it's something you'd really enjoy, and it's also really deep and well, not really deep, but they do get kind of realistic with Japanese culture. And and as far as like the character struggles.
Okay, thanks. I'll check out Samurai Jack. I know I might have seen like I don't remember it at all though, and I didn't watch it, but I had a friend who loved it, so I'll definitely check that out. Does anyone else have a recommendation? How about for like a movie? Like, what's the best like comic book movie to watch?
Here, I'm posting it right now.
But Shogun, for a comic, I'd say you have to read the Sandman series. It is so good. Like psychologists study it to this day. It's so in-depth.
Okay, so I want to get it. I did call it in a sense because the reason I said that is that I occasionally get intuitions and I kind of call them somehow to see if I get it right. So that's why I said, before you recommendation, flash into my mind. Sandman. I never read the Sandman comic, so I don't know the book out. I've seen one, but that was what came to my mind. So I said, before you tell me, I'm going to write this to you. Don't read it till after you say. And I got it wrong. He said I wouldn't like that, but that was what you had in mind, so it's kind of interesting.
Oh, it's one of my favorite comics.
Yeah, it's also I would highly recommend it as well.
Yeah, see, I just don't. I guess it's okay. I mean, it's an interesting.
I'll check them all out. Whatever you guys recommend, if I go down, I'll check them all.
You asked about movies, and there is a Venom movie, and I thought it was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, I'll watch that. I want to watch the Venom movie. That'll be the first movie I watch.
So I posted favorite ones, my favorite current ones, which is the Death Note series. I mean, I love the comics, but as far as films go, they are amazing.
That is actually a really good find, man. That's a great.
I think he didn't. I think he would love it because of the in-depthness of the actual story itself. It goes.
Plus the feuding between L and Peter is really cool. So cool.
Yeah, it's just the whole in-depthness of the story is amazing.
The show is Preacher.
Dude, Shogun, you need to watch Preacher. I was talking. Hang on. So you need to watch Preacher, dude, because it would be right up your alley. Because you're a little.
But I'll tell you this though: the comic is way better than the show. The show is like nothing compared to the. I'd recommend the comic over the show.
My ex recommended that to me, I think, as well. Is that the one where it's like a supernatural, like religious apocalypse type thing with like some kind of demon hunter or something?
Yes and no. It's the voice of God.
Yeah, pretty cool.
I couldn't watch it.
Why?
Just because it depicts Jesus having an adulterous affair. Like,
yeah, there's some cringy things in there.
Like, as soon as like I saw that scene, I stopped completely. Like, I watched a few episodes, and then like when I watched that one, it was like, nah, man. Like, this ain't good to watch.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so that's a show. Okay, so the Preacher is a show. Venom is a movie. That's some synopsis of what it's about. Concept.
So Wetworks is the gist of Wetworks is about an AI, an overpowering AI that takes over her, which is named Mother, and she the AI becomes so sentient that it is attacked from an interdimensional space of creatures that tries to come in and take over or tries to destroy Mother because they're afraid that Mother will eventually become so omnipotent that she will then come in and take over their race. So she creates these characters, these individual characters inside of Wetworks that have immense power to battle against these demons that come in to try to destroy her. It's a really, really, really story. Like really. But again, it's like it just depends on what you like to read. Like I happen to I love reading stuff that is very complicated or things that are very in depth, like psychologically and that have a lot more meaning than just what's on the surface. Like Death Note. Like for me, Death Note is probably one of the best written animes outside of Ghost in the Shell, which is a whole nother subject.
So you guys, anybody here fans of Roland Deschain or know who he is? So he's a protagonist from the Dark Tower series by Stephen King.
You're talking about the one that he goes up against, for the gunslinger goes against.
No, I'm talking about the gunslinger himself.
Oh, the gunslinger himself. Okay, yeah. I didn't know what his name was, but I figured that's what.
Shogun left. Oh, there he is. So yeah, so the Dark Tower series and the gunslinger. The guy's name is Roland. He's a certifiable badass. His superpowers. He doesn't really have a superpower so much as he has like enhanced abilities through training since he was a kid, and he's got these revolvers, and he fucks shit up with his guns. I mean, he can reload them. He can just drop the bullets into the cylinders, without even having to look. Just kind of freehand blast shit. And like the character is kind of, he's like he's a cool character, and the more you read through the books, like for me at least, like the better it got. And also if you're a Stephen King fan, it like connects all these other stories by Stephen King are connected to the Dark Tower saga. And it's like this all-encompassing web work that connects it all together. It's really cool here in the Stephen.
Well, yeah,
You're talking about the Dark Tower, right? And Roland, the gunslinger or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't read it or anything, but I was vaguely interested in the concept at one point, but I don't really know what it is. I'm really sorry I disconnected there when you were answering more about what works, but I got the idea it was an AI that fights like interdimensional beings, right? That sounds cool. All right, so is there anything else anyone wanted to observe about comic books or recommendations or?
I have a few.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry I missed so much. Girlfriend called. The Goon by, what is that? Dark Horse Publishing is a great one. It chronicles kind of a man in this kind of decrepit, rundown world, and his friends. They have a holiday, really good for recommendation. They have a holiday called St. McFuggins Day, where the people get drunk and they take to the and consume a lot of cake and they beat up people deemed too pretty. It's an older comic, so at the time, St. McFuggins Day was celebrated by beating up sparkly vampires. And then there's The Ghoul by IDW. It's about a nightmarish creature who actually works for the police of Los Angeles and takes on. He's like a 9-foot tall creature, and he has to ride around in a custom truck in the back of it. And he takes on criminal cases involving other monsters for the human world. And I don't know if anyone's referenced Spawn, but Spawn by Todd McFarlane of Image Comics is also great. I'm sorry, the Ghoul is IDW. Lily of the Veil, it's about a Canadian serial killer girl. It's pretty good. Also, recommendations.
Does anyone remember the movie The Losers?
Yes.
That was great.
The comic book is even better. It's either Dark Horse or Vertigo. It was a DC comic, and just the way, and it's finished, by the way. Like the movie tells about half the story, and it's pretty spot on. But the comic gets further into it, and if you guys remember the name of the bad guy, Max, it gets a lot more into like his story, and it's very well done comic series.
I collected Alien and Predator comics when I was a kid. Those were the only ones I actually seriously collected for a little while, especially Alien. That's the HR guy, right? Yeah, that guy was obsessed with that creature. It's just so alien, so unique. So I'm sort of like different from lethality or whatever, like different animals and how they kill and stuff like that. And I feel like the xenomorph, even though it's not real, it's like the perfect little like assassin monster. I love it. It's so cool. It's like almost a human, but also like an insect, and also like a basically it's a human insect. Really, is what it kind of is. Wouldn't you agree? But
Yeah,
it's something
yeah.
else.
Well, it's
You
only
might-
after it comes into contact with human DNA, though, that it becomes the xenomorph.
You
I
might
thought
get
xenomorph was just what the alien was called, but in the comic
No,
books,
no.
Oh, right, because it comes from the chest burster, and it can come from other species as well.
Yeah, you might get a kick out of this. I got into comics at the supermarket. I picked up Archie's and Jughead. That was my first foray into comics, and I loved Archie's as a kid.
You're an odd duck, normal guy. I always hated Archie comics. I couldn't understand what was the appeal in them. That doesn't mean that's not why you're. Yeah, I'm not calling you odd in any bad way. You're a great guy, but that's a funny thing to enjoy. Always felt I never understood the appeal.
David's on his way to planet Earth right now.
Who's David?
He's the one that invented the actual specific xenomorph that you know as.
He's on his way to Earth right now.
Yeah.
Okay, what are you talking about? Does anyone know what he's talking about?
In the last movie, he's on his way to Earth.
Oh, cool. What is David? He's the alien or the android?
He's the android, the first one that had his own opinion and no rules.
He invented the alien?
Well, the original virus or whatever it is the actual biological weapon that there's lots of names, the space jockeys, there's lots of names, but that's one of the most older ones people know him as. Invented it, and there was a beacon they found and went to this planet, and they found one of their ships, and David found the shit, and he spent years engineering the virus and making his own perfection in his own image and his own mind.
So I'm so confused because I remember the storyline. It starts with Alien 1, where Sigourney Weaver's in the space station or whatever, and the alien thing gets on board out of an egg. It jumps on the guy's face, lays the chest burster bursts out, scuttles away, becomes a humanoid insect thing. So
that's way after. That's way after.
David invented the space burster. Originally, it was a microscopic organism that could get in through your skin or anything anywhere, and would make a super hyper aggressive version of yourself.
It was a symbiote.
Whatever it got to genetically, it would make a super hyper aggressive version of it.
Okay. So yeah, I've got a lot to learn even about the alien universe.
And David was the one that created the actual genetic. Like he designed genetically the xenomorph in which you see. But the actual being, like the creature itself, was a biological weapon created by the Watchers.
There was one that really fucked with me. It's called Music of the Spears. It was an alien comic.
Yeah, I know it. I have it.
You have it? It was really disturbing to me as a child. So the concept is it's in a future where they've captured and contained some of these aliens or whatever, xenomorphs, and they harvest something from them called jelly. I don't know if they maybe get it from the queen alien, I think. They actually get it from a queen, and it's like the most insane drug in the world. And it makes these people just like, I don't know, Bedivere, you've probably read it more recently than I have. Can you remember it?
No, I just remember a glimpse of the artwork.
Yeah, so what it is they take this drug called jelly, which I guess, it's like royal jelly from the queen, and then they like eat it or whatever. It's like purple goo. They get like insanely high. You may want to close your mic, Doug. They get like insanely high, and then I guess they become like super hedonistic and debauched or something, and have these like ridiculous parties and raves and shit. And there's this like evil composer who makes music by putting people in his own little death maze and then feeding them to the aliens and recording their screams. And then he remixes their screams into music or some shit. It's super fucked. And then at some point they put like 3 samurai dudes in there, and they have to try and kill the alien with like spears and shit. I don't remember really, but it was disturbing at the time. But cool.
Hey, Richter, did you happen to know that Frank actually ends up killing everyone with inside of the DC world?
Wait, what the fuck? Wasn't that Deadpool?
No, Frank Castle goes back and he has a file that he gets and back and he kills everyone.
Wait, what? The DC world? Isn't there a god?
Yes. No, he is. He goes back and he kills, like he becomes Frankenstein.
What the fuck?
No, listen, I'm dead serious. He becomes Frankenstein called Frankencastle. And he goes back in and he takes all the files of all the things that he's learned from all of the different superheroes and he kills them all. Like he goes around just slaughtering all of the entire world, like all the Marvel characters, all of the DC characters, everything.
Yeah, okay, but it's like a fun comic, right?
Oh, it's great.
Like
It's
Deadpool.
probably the
Yeah.
Frankencastle is probably one of the best writings of all time when it comes to Frank. I love Frank, but that series is great.
So Richter, you didn't answer yet. Do you you should give an answer. So the question is, what superhero or supervillain would you be? Why? And what would you do with the powers?
Wait.
You take a minute to think about it. So you can be any character from any superhero.
Who's the writer of-
I'm sure Ghost knows. The question is, who's the writer of Marvel?
Stan Lee. I would be Stan Lee.
Stan Lee.
Yeah.
No, but you can't
Yeah,
choose
but you can't ever use
the
that
actor.
one.
You gotta
Wait,
choose a superhero.
he is a character, I think.
I know that was already brought up, but that's not an acceptable answer
fuck.
for me. That could be your first answer, but make another one.
Fuck. Deadpool.
Okay, cool. We didn't get that one yet. So what's his deal again? He's like, I know what he looks like, but that's all I know.
He can't be killed.
He can't be killed. Is that all?
Yeah, he
just
killed
comes back to life?
God, basically. Once.
How did he do that?
I don't know, but he really cannot be killed, like ever. So he just killed God because he cannot be killed. I don't know how it worked. But...
Does he come back to life, or does he just not die? Is he invincible?
No.
No, he regrows.
Yeah.
Even if there's a
Was it-
tiny little speck of him left, he literally can regrow his entire body just from a molecular speck. He has super healing abilities like Wolverine.
Does he feel pain?
Yes.
Yeah, but
Well, then that's like the worst
he
possible
does-
superpower then.
It's
No, he doesn't feel pain because
it's
he
fucking Ben
he
Affleck.
feels
What do you
felt it so
expect?
much.
Because why? He doesn't feel pain?
No, he
Because
feels
he
pain.
felt it so much. No, because he felt it so much, he doesn't really like if he gets shot, he doesn't react to it.
Well,
No,
sure,
I know he
doesn't
doesn't.
have to.
He still feels pain. He still has pain sensor.
I mean, I'm not questioning your answer, right? It's your own answer, but technically this is the worst of all powers because it's the only one that allows you to suffer infinitely.
Well, Shogun, think about it this way. Batman shoves a grenade into Deadpool's pants and blows him up, like into pieces, during their battle. Bruce beats the shit out of him, like when he comes to Wayne Manor. He literally beats the shit out of Wade. And then Wade puts on he shows up to the Wayne Manor, and then Wade puts on the Deadpool outfit. And when Batman is out on the streets of Gotham and attacks him again, and as Batman, he beats the shit out of him and then sticks a grenade in Deadpool's pants and blows him up. And then after he blows him up, Deadpool regrows and comes back, and it goes on for a long time. Like he's got a contract to kill Batman, and it's a long thing. It's pretty funny and drawn out.
That was interesting. Everybody's different answers.
Everybody's ass.
But I just want to point this out again, right? So let's say someone takes Deadpool and they put him in a special prison that he can't move, and then they drop him into a star. He's now essentially in hell because he's just going to keep burning forever in that star and regenerating and burning and regenerating and burning. So this is the power essentially of like Prometheus strapped to the rock, getting his liver eaten every day and regrowing it, like where the people in hell who burn but never burn up. Like to me, Deadpool's power is not a power at all. It's I mean, obviously it is, right? Because if you can't be killed, you're like a perfect assassin or whatever. I get that, but and when I think about the potentials of that one, it's the only one that could leave you much worse off than you are now.
he was made from a scientific experiment where a whole bunch of people were being tested, and it has the chance to kill you, and a random mutation happens, and his random mutation is just he can't die because he had cancer, so it like reverses. So the cancer grows all over his body, but he can't die.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a
Yeah,
powerful
they
power
basically,
that would be great to
did
have.
that Weapons X program.
I was just
So,
going to say that it's nothing like the movie, by the way. His actual origin is nothing like they show in the movie at all. Zero. Not even
But
close.
he still had cancer, right?
Yeah, he still like Wade has had cancer. But
And
when
that's
he
the
was
gene
when he was part of Weapon X, he's given a serum that like held the cancer at bay. And then when he leaves the Weapon X program, he then gets another ability where they put him into this testing protocol that you're talking about, which pushes his X gene because he already has the X gene. It just hasn't formed. But through the program, it pushes it out. And he has his real abilities are super healing. He has a super healing ability that regenerates him at a subatomic level.
There's also a period where Deadpool becomes Hulk for a while.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Deadpool's one of those.
Have you, by the
Deadpool's
way,
kind of
Ghost
the
Hunters,
jackass
have you
of.
read the Batman Dark? Have you read the what is it, the Dark Metal saga of Batman? I think it's
No,
Dark Metal Knights is the correct term.
I stopped following Batman after like about the time that the end of the Dark Knight series ended. I didn't really care for the Phantom Batman and all that other bullshit.
I'll post a link to the story of the Metal Knights series. It's actually pretty cool. Basically, I mean, like, there's a lot to cover, but essentially, Batman goes back in time to try to correct an issue that ends up coming about in the future, and he ends up being responsible for creating the myth lore that inevitably ends up creating himself, basically. You know? But what you find out in the series is that essentially Batman is like some sort of like vessel for this demigod that like is always destined to inhabit Batman, and thereby Batman is always destined to kill Superman. Pretty
Well,
interesting.
Batman was kind of like the Frank Castle. Like Batman's kind of the Frank. Like Batman is the Frank Castle of DC. Like he has a file. It's interesting that the Bruce Wayne character is actually very, very interesting because he literally creates a file on every single superhero in the entire known DC world, and technologically designs ways of killing them. Like he has it as a protocol.
He did that with the Super Friends, or not the Super Friends. What is the official title?
The Justice League.
The Justice League, yeah.
Yes.
I love how they what is it? Martian finds out that he has a file on him.
Yes.
And gets irritated, and like Batman just straight up calls his bluff. He's like, "You gonna do something about it?" Then the Martian's like, "No."
Well, of course not, because Batman would have killed him. He has like, and I find it interesting that people say, "Well, Batman doesn't use guns, so therefore he doesn't kill." That's actually incorrect. Like the only.
What? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard someone could think about Batman.
Well, they do though. That's the thing. Like in the comics, like when you watch the cartoon series, like all the cartoon movies and everything, they push this concept because Batman doesn't use guns that he doesn't kill, but that's actually incorrect because if you go back to his origins, which is the Detective Comics and Action Comics, that was his whole thing, was eliminating the bad guy. Like completely.
I just want to point out that statement is absurd on his face. He doesn't use guns, so he doesn't kill. I mean, you can kill people all day with your bare hands. Like, so if he goes around beating the shit out of people the way he does, he's going to kill a lot of people that way, whether he wants to or not. He can just beat the ever living fuck out of people and not have any of them die.
It's just
Batman
how
has killed.
cartoons work. I don't know. It's just how they decided to do it in the cartoon world.
In cartoons, you can just absorb
that's so
infinite
funny.
amounts of punches and kicks without dying. Is that basically how it works? If someone just like boots you in the head like 100 times, you just like get up and walk off.
Yeah, but like Batman is such a fucking weak character. I hate him, bro. I fucking hate these characters that don't kill.
Why?
These characters that don't kill, bro. That's so stupid. Like
he
gets
has.
fucked. He gets.
Dude,
Yeah, I know.
he has
Even now,
killed,
he
and
did.
he's
Yo,
literally.
when Nightwing
I
got
know,
shot
but
in
he's
the
like
head,
Codex, and he
Superman,
gets
like,
so
how do you
fucked by
consider killing
everyone. And
Superman
then he
weak?
says like, "No, I don't want to kill everyone."
Like,
Richter, when Nightwing got
I
shot
know
in the
he has
head
do you
best.
know
recently,
that like Batman?
Why are you guys all
like,
over talking and echoing? Come on, stop.
when
I
Nightwing
know he
got shot in the
killed,
head,
but his
yeah.
codex is don't kill. So that's fucking stupid.
No,
That
no,
is
his code
fucking
is
stupid.
code kills certain people. Like his he has like he's first off, it's like the Joker, right? The interaction between him and the Joker is extremely psychologically interesting because the Joker is the other side of Batman, just like Batman is the other side of the Joker. If you really look at how the interaction of the character works, and if you ever
Yeah, I
watch
know.
if you ever watch the film The Killing Joke, it's genius because the comic book I thought of The Killing Joke was a much better story, but they did a really good job of putting that storyline into a film called The Killing Joke. And you really get to see how the reasons why Batman doesn't kill the Joker and why Batman didn't kill Superman right away, like why there was such an interaction between them, because Batman sees himself in Kal-El, and which was the main reason why he doesn't kill Kal-El until after he decides that Superman, and again, the movies do it, the storyline really shitty justice, because
he
the
also
reason
feels
why
responsible for making Joker.
the reason why he ends up killing Kal-El is because he's afraid of if Kal-El ever came to the point of becoming, thinking of himself as being a god, like in this physical realm. Like it's he sees it, or Bruce views it as him eliminating a true threat, or the true threat to humanity within inside of this physical realm.
Well,
which he ends
I
up
think
actually becoming in one of the series where Hitler finds Superman as a baby and believes him to be like the prophetic Ubermensch, and then Superman kind of is seen as a god in their eyes, and he's pretty dark in that saga.
Oh, so it's like Lex, and that there goes another aspect of it. When you throw Lex into the mix, and when Lex actually creates the AI in his AI technology suit, amazing. It's a really good story.
Well, another great story is the White Knight series that just came out like a few months ago. It's in the third issue. Fucking Joker explains what he does to Batman. He's constantly testing him. It's like the old Batman. He's like, you're no longer Batman because you can't adapt to me. This new one, he adapted. He thrives. He's the true Batman. It's such a great explanation why the Joker doesn't kill Batman.
What is the name?
And the
I don't
Joker-
remember if White Knight is the series you're referring to, but what is the series where Joker he creates this elaborate plan to get revenge on Batman, and like he pretends as though that he's cured, and he puts like Bruce Wayne on trial and actually ends up getting Gotham to hate Batman?
I think that's White Knight, but the one I'm talking to is White Knight, Last Night on Earth. It's the one that just came out. But White Knight is the one you're thinking about, and it's so fucking good. It shows that Joker is like, honestly, I think Joker is as smart as Batman. He just doesn't want to reveal it because it's gonna ruin the fun. Like I truly believe Joker knows who the fuck Batman is. He's just like, I don't want to ruin the fun.
The Batman Who Laughs is also a very interesting saga.
Oh, so
the
good,
Batman
so
Who
good.
Laughs is awesome.
Can't wait for Dark Knight Metals too. That fucking series
Wait,
is so good.
was this Joker movie true that it was as like a mental condition? That's why he left. Is it
So I'm
true?
going to say something. Well, I guess I shouldn't rain on anybody's parade. I've tried to watch the Dark Knight movies, Dark Knight Rise. I find them incredibly boring and uninteresting. Like I zone out completely.
Yeah, but don't watch
Yeah, you have
the
to be
live action
young.
films like Shogun. I'm just gonna tell you this from like a fan standpoint, okay? The anime series, like the
It's so good.
animation series of Batman, is way better than any of the live actions. Especially when you get like Mark Hamill as the Joker, and Kevin Conroy as Batman. It's fucking amazing.
So what's the name of that show, or that the show? What would you actually? Because you search Bat.
It's the animated films. All of the animated films are way better. Like The Killing Joke, The Red Hood, the Dark Knight Rises, Old Man Bats. There's a whole series of them. Like there's probably 40 films at least in the animated series than there is against like the live action series.
Like
yeah, I was
Marvel.
gonna say Red Hood is also a really good one. So
Oh,
is the break off Red Hood and the Outlaws. That's pretty freaking sweet.
Awesome.
I mean,
It's awesome.
I love what they did with Robin's character. Did you know that in a later part that Nightwing actually becomes Dark Phoenix?
Well, yeah, he becomes dark, and I liked also that they stuck more, like the animated series sticks more to the comics, like true to the comics than it does like the live action film. The live action films
Yeah.
were really shittily.
Did you see Under the Red Hood?
Oh yeah.
Good.
That's an awesome one.
I've watched all of them.
Well,
Cool,
it's
man. I didn't know you were into comics that much. I'm like a total nerd when it comes to comics.
Well, I'm a huge
The Joker.
Batman fan. Like fucking. I wish I could take a picture of my phone. My phone is literally Batman. Like I like built my own. Here, I'll post it. I literally built my own Batmobile. I'm in that much into Batman.
That's awesome.
That's
dude.
sick.
The Joker
About
is
as
my
much as
favorite.
I've done is designed an exosuit, but I don't have the money to fund it. But speaking from an engineering point of view, it's totally sound.
So can I just say, like, the Joker is my favorite. Has always been my favorite villain. He doesn't have any superpowers, but he's fucking crazy, And he's like definitely crazy. He's like out of his mind, And like Bruce Wayne has no superpowers. Joker has no superpowers, and they're like the perfect.
Ralph, close your mic, please.
Except
like
for
the
when he becomes
perfect,
Cosmic
like,
Joker.
The perfect. Well, okay, but like just like the normal most of the time in the story, like they're like the perfect hero and villain kind of. Like they're diametrically opposed, They balance each other.
I'm curious, how is it possible if Batman is, this like highly trained billionaire with all this high tech shit that he has, and the Joker's just an ordinary guy with like, I don't know, severe schizophrenia? How does he manage to not just immediately get like chased down by like a flying bat vehicle in the sky and like?
Because he's a genius.
Yeah, he's
They
genius.
find out that actually he's like he has like a super genius intellect. You find out later on in the series.
He's
like a super smart. He's like a super smart genius maniac.
Okay, so we have to get Mr. Ronald's opinion on the main question since he popped in. If you could be any superhero or supervillain, MC, who would you be, and why, and what would you do with the powers?
Wow.
Doug, you keep your mic closed. You're breathing into your mic.
All right, so if I could be any super person, really.
Super villain or super person from any universe of the comics or movies.
Doctor Doom was awesome.
Who is he again?
Doctor Doom was the guy with the iron mask and the cape.
What were his powers?
And his powers were like, kind of like Iron Man, where he had like a super suit, but he was a villain. But then I always liked Batman, because Batman was just a badass billionaire and got all the girls, and kicked crime's ass, and he was just a plain human, something that could possibly be achievable.
So if you had to choose one final answer.
I would choose probably Batman.
Yeah, it's funny that you would choose Batman. Isn't that funny if you were to say like you could be any of these characters and you'd actually choose to be just an ordinary human, even if he's like not ordinary because he's a billionaire. But would you really, like, if I really was granting you like an actual wish, would you really choose Batman knowing that he's the only one who's actually just a person like you? When you could be like a wizard or a fucking whatever.
If I could wake up tomorrow and be Batman, yeah, totally.
Wow, trippy. Cool. Fascinating.
Because he has way more skills and way more knowledge and way more money, and he can do so much more shit with all that stuff than any of us in this room.
Well,
Yeah,
unquestionably.
Just like the Joker, you know.
Hey, Soul, click on that image I posted of the interior cockpit of the car. I got a concealed carry ticket, a concealed weapon carry ticket for. I got stopped in Cali when I took it to a show because I custom built a detachable Batarang, a usable detachable Batarang.
It's so awesome.
Into the steering wheel. You could see it. It's at the bottom. It actually, like, there's a clip on to push a button.
So we might as well. Okay, but I think it was a really interesting one. So scientists' recommendations, interesting version, very unique take on everybody, and thanks everybody for answers. All that's really interesting. I will have to did a little time reading at least one comic book, watching at least one comic book movie, and perhaps watching at least a few episodes of the show, and then go from there. Thank you everybody for your time. We are around the Discord server. Don't forget to join us on Discord. Discord, follow us on YouTube, all your social media, and that's all. Thank you. We'll do more time until 2000, and let's jump up to a room for freestyle conversation for tonight. Thanks, Lucy, as always, recording, and see you guys.
Bye. Thank you.